Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. Today's date is May 31st, 2021. In this video, we're going to do a critique of Caleb Maupin. I have mostly been confining my critiques to very large channels like Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, people like that. I am doing a series on understanding Richard Wolff right now because Richard Wolff is making the rounds not only on his own channel, but to many other sort of soft left channels. And I think that that's worth understanding. There are a lot of people interested in the topic of cooperatives under capitalism, cooperatives and socialism, maybe. And it sounds like Wolff is putting out an idea that we can co-op our way from capitalism to socialism. I really don't believe that. And so, that's the impetus there. I've done one video on Caleb Maupin in the past. Let me just say, if you don't regularly watch this channel and you're tuning in just because Caleb Maupin is in the title, please go watch some of the audiobooks or something else. Like, I really just don't need your garbage in the comments because I attacked your boy, okay? Just go away. I don't need you here, really. That said, a viewer sent this clip in. I don't watch Caleb Maupin normally. We have our own thing going here, and it's just not something I get that much value out of. But a viewer sent this in and said, hey, Caleb Maupin is saying that fascism is going to come from the woke left in the United States. And I thought, all right, this I got to see. A lot of the criticisms of Caleb Maupin have been that he embraces a lot of right-wing ideas and out-and-out fascists. I've seen them in his comments in doing his thing, whatever the hell it is. And, for a guy who gets accused of that and then gets mad when people say that and then starts calling them synthetic left or whatever fucking thing he made up, maybe don't use right-wing talking points like this. That would just be my advice. So let's get into what was said. There's kind of a long clip I'm going to play. I don't know how. First of all, this is why I don't do live streams, because I try to edit the videos down so that it's fairly concentrated in terms of quality. And so as I know you all have other things you can be doing. So do I. And anyway, we're going to listen to Caleb Maupin sort of repeat himself for about 7 minutes, and then he starts getting to the point. Here we go.
So, folks, I've just given you my resume. I've explained to you my economic understanding rooted in dialectical and historical materialism. And I've been talking to you for over an hour now. But actually, I'm setting you all up for an important punchline, if you will. Not really a punchline. It's not humorous, but I'm setting you all up. This was all me setting you up for telling you something that you need to understand. And I had to tell you everything I just told you so that you could understand what I'm about to tell you. If I had started out saying what I'm about to say, you would have thought, and you wouldn't have understood it. You would not have understood what gives me the authority to tell you what I'm about to tell you. I am about to tell you something that is very, very important. And I had to tell you everything I just told you. I had to tell you who I am. I had to tell you about Marxism. I had to tell you about dialectical materialism. I had to tell you about overproduction. I had to tell you about Trayvon Martin and Occupy Wall Street. I had to tell you all of that so you could understand that I didn't reach this conclusion because I had a bad dream last night.
Breaking in for a minute, I think I may be having a bad dream right now. But for reference, if you want to hear all the stuff that he was just talking about, this starts at about 1 hour and 5 minutes into the video. So if you really want to hear all the stuff, you can just rewind, I guess, back prior to 1 hour, 5 minutes.
I did not reach this conclusion because I just thought of it while reading a science fiction book. I have reached a conclusion that is vitally important, and it is very serious, and it is not a joke, but it's something that people will have trouble taking serious. And the conclusion is this. We've got 5 years. We've got about 5 years we've got 5 years before liberalism becomes illiberal. We've got about 5 years before fascism 2.0 emerges. We've got 5 years. And I don't even want to call it fascism 2.0 because it won't be fascism 2.0. It won't look like Hitler. It won't look like Mussolini. Some kind of illiberal liberalism will be developed, and it's being developed right now. Some kind of illiberal liberalism is going to be on the march. We've got 5 years. 5 years to get our shit together. Got about 5 years. 5 years before what I will call the liberal menace. The liberal menace is on the march. The liberal menace is on the road to power. We have 5 years. About 5 years before the liberal menace emerges.
Wait, how long? Seriously, though, honestly, I think Caleb could be like a funny person because there's no way that he is not on some level like aware of how funny that is that he just did. He just said 5 years about 10 times. Anyway, he continues on. Let me just say, I share the general concern that the system in the United States is getting worse and worse. I don't see it necessarily as that there's going to be a distinct break point. I think that there have been particularly, well, I guess you could say Ronald Reagan was, the formal beginning of neoliberalism, Morning in America, this new vision really being clearly articulated and put forward by the ruling class. Hey, we're rolling back everything. Hey, this is open counter-revolution in a very concerted way. You could say, Bill Clinton was the start of a new kind of right-wing Democrat funded by the Koch brothers. Yes, I know they like Koch brothers. And the Gingrich Congress, very right-wing Congress. George W. Bush, I think, was another turning point or another, new growth phase, another quantum leap in this turn to the right, this worsening of the U.S. system, this departure from class peace, social democracy, more forays into just open, naked use of force across the entire planet without any pretense that the U.S. is there to help. The George W. Bush years were somewhat unprecedented in a lot of ways with regard to that, both abroad and domestically. The 2008 crash, of course, affected not just the U.S., but everywhere that was invested in imperialism and that, did business with imperialism. So it affected the whole world to some extent. But that really kicked things up a notch. You got austerity, the Tea Party. It goes on and on and on. The Obama years as the new kind of, hope and change, completely empty slogan. Nothing gets fixed. It's totally a superficial Band-Aid. Donald Trump comes in. The right is growing, and this affects both Democrats and Republicans. But my point is that we're talking about 40 years now, and I think it's a pretty steady progression with a few quantum leaps at particular times when it, decidedly goes up a notch. I am concerned about that process. Will it at some point, have another really alarming quantum leap? Yes, I'm sure of it. Will there be some decisive endpoint? Maybe if economic crises keep happening like in a very short period of time and spiral out of control, and then the ruling class gets super desperate. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Again, I think we've been living through a slow motion version of this for quite a while. The question is it about to sometime soon in the next 5 or 10 years, get, quicker. I think that that's possible. I do think that we on the far left need to do everything that we can because both Democrats and Republicans work for the 1%, and it's their system, and they come at the working class like good cop, bad cop, for the same bosses, with the same goal, but using slightly different tactics to get our attention and get our participation, submission, cooperation, etc. So I share this basic concern. With that noted, let's get back to the timeline.
Now, when I say liberal menace, I don't mean Democrats and Republicans. Come on. We're smarter than this. We speak in political ideological terms, not in terms of, the liberals are a bunch of Democrats, like Rush Limbaugh. No, we're talking about liberalism. All right? Infrared. I like Infrared. His YouTube channel, don't agree with everything he says. I'm sure he doesn't agree with many things I say. But one of his great formulations, he defined fascism as when liberalism collapses on itself and becomes illiberal. That's a very good definition. It's a very good definition, but it doesn't only apply to fascism. This is bonapartism. Bonapartism is when liberalism is forced to become illiberal in order to preserve itself. Right? And there are many forms of bonapartism. Fascism was one form of bonapartism that emerged in the lead up to the Second World War. And it was the liberal order in Germany. It was under threat from communism. It was under threat from workers' revolution. It was under threat from continuing economic instability. And so the German liberal society imploded on itself and became a fascist state. And this will happen within 5 years in the United States. We have about 5 years before liberalism collapses on itself and becomes illiberal. And I'm predicting now, we had Trump. Trump was defeated. Trump failed.
Okay, breaking in again. Minor points, but I don't think that Trump failed. I think that every part of the ruling government has played their part in this progression. I think that this is more of a slow motion, stealth by slow motion, I guess you could say, operation. It's this steady drip with the occasional quantum leap, but they don't always like doing the quantum leaps because it gets people too alarmed, and they don't want that. They want to roll in a new order as quickly as they can, yes, but quietly. They want to do it as slowly as they can afford to so that people don't get their hackles up about it. They don't want resistance. So I think Reagan played his part, Bush Sr. played his part, Clinton played his part, George W. Bush played his part, Obama played his part, Trump played his part. And as far as, not looking like Mussolini, I think Trump looked like Mussolini, actually. So I don't think he failed. But I do agree with the idea that fascism is capitalism under threat, basically consolidating itself. We already know that bourgeois democracy is a sham. All you get are different flavors of rule by capitalists. What I happen to be doing a series on this on the channel currently, looking at the rise of the original fascists in Italy. And that was a response by the ruling class to a failed revolution. Following World War I, Italian society was, feeling demoralized and economically in the lurch. The Russian Revolution had just happened about a year and a half prior, and there were widespread worker occupations at factories across Italy, but they didn't go the distance. They didn't have a revolution. They didn't seize the government. So seeing a revolutionary situation almost do a revolution, the Italian bourgeoisie were like, fuck no. And they supported Mussolini. Basically, you could say there was a consolidation of bourgeois political ruling effort into the fascist movement, which suppressed socialism and claimed that it would rein in the excesses of the ruling class, really very much like Trump, made some kind of pseudo-populist, even socialist promises, didn't follow through on any of them, and in many cases did the opposite. That reminds me very much of Trump. So we are on that path. Yes, the Democrats are absolutely part of the war efforts, part of the domestic police state efforts, part of the economic austerity efforts. So, yes, two parties, one system. I mean, it's two parties, only two parties, and they're both controlled by the same people. Like I said, different styles, but they are definitely both in on this effort, albeit in different ways. Okay, back to the video.
And I am predicting that within 5 years, it won't be from the Trump wing of things. It'll be more from the Biden wing of things. The liberal menace will emerge. And the liberal menace, it's very interesting. It will be the mirror opposite of what's happening in the developing world. China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Nicaragua, all these societies that are emerging, they're anti-imperialist countries. They're countries where the state largely controls the economy. And they take different illiberal traditions and they merge them together, right? They got communism and Marxism for their economy. They've got religion in Russia and Russian nationalism. You know, they've got indigenous religion in Nicaragua. In China, they've incorporated Confucianism. These societies are mishmashes of illiberalism, right? Confucianism is traditional Chinese illiberalism. Marxism and Mao Zedong thought is illiberalism, right? Russian Orthodox nationalism, that is illiberalism. Communism is illiberalism. Nicaragua, you've got Roman Catholicism, you've got indigenous traditions, you've got Marxism. In Iran, they call it not capitalism, but Islam. They've got the Islamic revolutionary tradition. And that the anti-imperialist bloc is largely a mixture. It is a mishmash of different illiberal traditions. Different illiberal traditions smudged together in order to make societies work. In order for these societies to be free from the liberal order, to develop, a state that is strong enough to keep the society free from the liberal order.
I'm going to break in here again. I don't think all the countries and all the ideas that Caleb just lumped in together necessarily should be lumped in together. Nor do I think they are good or things that we, as Marxists, necessarily should be supporting. To be honest, it strikes me as bizarre that some of the things he just mentioned could even be referenced as good things. Yes, they're responses by countries trying to keep the particular influence of US-led Western imperialism out. Does that make them at all desirable or in any way positive things for their people? Or are they just simply independent? What are they doing that we as socialists would applaud specifically? This is part of where Caleb starts going off into the populist nationalism thing. This is not Marxism. This is why he gets so much flack and why people call him a right-winger and Nazball and all this other stuff. Don't praise these things, and people won't call you that. Then again, I don't work for RT. I don't have to have some of these positions. I don't have to suck up to people in Russia or Iran and say, good job. Nobody flies me around to press junkets in these countries and says that my salary is dependent on playing nice with these people. If that's not, I know that the flying around to press junkets part happens. If the rest of that doesn't happen, and Caleb is just taking these ideas on, just out of purely, he just agrees with them. Whatever the case, they're not good ideas necessarily. Congrats, you kept the US out. Also, they're not necessarily things we should be supporting as socialists. Some, not all. I'm not, it's beyond the scope of this video to pick through all of those things he just mentioned, the big mishmash, as it were. I'm not going to try to, pick through the puddle of vomit right now and say this good, that bad. But let it be said, there's a ton of stuff in there that I don't think you can just give the blanket praise that he just gave, merely that it is being done in the name of anti-imperialism. Continuing.
They have developed a kind of ideological mishmash of different illiberal schools of thought. My prediction is that right now in the United States, the most powerful capitalists, the Council on Foreign Relations, the big oil companies, the big banks, the Silicon Valley monopolies, they are cobbling together the mirror opposite. They are cobbling together what I call the liberal menace. And it will be a mishmash of liberal ideas formed into an illiberal movement to defeat illiberalism, as complicated and convoluted as that sounds. They will pull things from libertarianism and Ayn Rand objectivism. They will pull things from eco-Malthusianism. They will pull things from wokeism and woke guilt. They will pull things from all kinds of traditions.
Okay, jumping in again, they will do this. They already have been doing this. Like, literally what he is describing, this isn't a prediction. This has already been happening for at least 10 years. I mean, depending on which element you're talking about. Obama incorporated a lot of the woke elements. Trump is pulling in some of the classical fascist elements. The libertarianism, you got that in the Tea Party. Like, this has already been cobbled together. This isn't a prediction. This is a description of the past and present. That's happening now. It's been happening in the most recent historical window. I also don't know if you can say that it's going to be more from the Biden side than the Trump side. Both of these parties take up about half the government in the U.S., and they both play a crucial role in herding a good chunk of the population into aligning in some way with imperialism. That's key. So, anyway, I don't know that you can say more one than the other. They both play a very important role. So, we have two things there that it honestly does come from both sides. The Democrats are there to straitjacket the left while also taking money from most of the same people that the Republicans take money from. And then the Republicans are there to herd the out-and-out, crazy, anti-intellectual, everything else, openly bigoted right-wingers into doing what they need to be done, all in the service of shoring up this system, which is tottering, very unstable. Continuing.
All of it will be merged into one liberal menace. There will be a mass authoritarian movement to save liberalism and crush illiberalism. There will be an effective mass mobilization of society to crush all illiberalism, and it will set the stage. It will be intended to set the stage for war against illiberalism around the world. Just like fascism was intended to set the stage for war against communism around the world, this particular menace, this liberal menace, this mobilization, this society-wide current to smash all illiberalism, smash all socialism, smash all religion, this liberal menace. The liberal menace will be solidified and on the march in about 5 years. We have 5 years. Right now, the ruling class is celebrating the downfall of Donald Trump and his attempted bonapartism. Joe Biden is trying to stabilize society and make everybody happy. But behind the scenes, they are developing something that won't look like Nazi fascism. It won't look like Nazi fascism. No, no. Nazi fascism was way, way too rooted in feudalism. Feudalism is long gone. Feudalism is ancient history. But the Nazis, largely, as German society deteriorated, as liberal German society deteriorated into illiberalism, they very much appealed to the remnants of feudalism. Right? They appealed to knights and castles and honor and anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism was built into the feudal order, right? You know, you had to have somebody lend money. And so anti-Semitic beliefs were built into feudal society, right? Because only Jews were allowed to lend money, and so they were demonized and segregated. And Nazi Germany, fascism in Nazi Germany was largely, it was because the liberal order had failed, appealing to the remnants of feudalism that still existed in German society. The desire for honor, the hatred of Jews, the mystical Wagnerian stuff. That's what fascism was. We won't do that because feudalism is gone, right? There's no feudal memories in U.S. society. There's certainly plenty of reactionary ideas. But there's not feudal nostalgia. There's not feudal traditions and feudal mindsets to appeal to. So it will look very, very different. And it'll have elements of what we call the left, right? Eco-Malthusianism. It'll have the synthetic left all over it. But it'll also have elements of the right. I expect eugenics and Malthusianism will be a big part of it. I expect that Western supremacy and the belief that the quote-unquote the West is the best will be a big part of it. That's what the Proud Boys chant at their rallies. The West is the best. I don't really know what the role of this mobilization will be in regards to sexuality, and it'll probably be it'll be some odd mixture of social conservatism and social liberalism. It'll be some odd confusion. But the liberal menace will emerge. I give it 5 years before the capitalist class of the United States comes to the point that the faction that is ready to collapse liberalism is got enough strength that they overall collapse liberalism and the liberal menace, some kind of mobilization of authoritarianism to preserve the liberal order takes control of the United States. That's my prediction.
Okay, breaking in, that's, again, not really a prediction. That's pretty much what's already been happened and just, looking to the logical conclusion of what they're clearly, doing now. So a few comments. I said before in my last commentary that the system is very unstable. In fact, I'd just like to expand on that by saying that the system right now is more stable than it really has any right to be. I mean, a majority of voting age people are not affiliated with either the Democratic or Republican parties. People are basically dissatisfied with the way that the country is run. They want another political party, whether or not they're socialists, but they, may not be very politically well educated, but they want something else. They know that much. A country like this that just had a huge major crash in 2008, the pandemic. I mean, right now we're in a situation where house prices, for example, are higher than they were during the mid-2000s, the famous housing bubble of the 2000s. We have now exceeded the prices during that time. Even accounting for inflation, they're back to the peak of the 2000s housing bubble. So what's around the corner? It doesn't take a genius to see that the system is not, organically going to hold together well with peace and prosperity. It is more stable than it has any right to be, thanks to the skillful machinations of the ruling class in terms of patching together this crazy quilt / straitjacket of, this political patchwork, keeping a lot of people stitched together who don't really have an interest in seeing this system continue as it is, or not much of an interest. But there's all kinds of hoodwinking and just roping people in. That won't last forever, but they're hoping that it will last till tomorrow and then tomorrow after that. So I don't think that they want to pull the pin on the current illusion, which, of course, is, coming unraveled. It is getting worn out to the point of being threadbare to, from the perception of many people. It's not holding up as well as it used to. But anyway, a couple of other comments. Smashing all religion. I think that that's absurd, to be honest. I think that that's absurd. I would be surprised if that ever happened. And, I don't know if you want to throw in they're going to smash all genuine religion. I'm not religious. I don't think religion actually is that positive of a force. So I don't exactly know where that's coming from, unless you're saying they want to smash Islamic fundamentalism to attack Iran. Again, I would rather see Iran not under U.S. control. Obviously, I'm not an imperialist, but I don't think that fundamentalist religion is a positive force. I don't. In and of itself, is there another way to do what they're doing? Yeah, there probably is. So, anyway, I don't support that, given an alternative. Not to mention that in the United States, have you been paying attention at all? Jesus camp is how they get people to vote for the Republican Party. And then a lot of the churches are how they get people to vote for Democrats, too. I mean, religion is a major part of roping people into the U.S. system. I don't know how you would just abandon that at the drop of a hat and keep any of this running. I don't think that at all. As far as there not being feudal nostalgia in the United States, what? I mean, the U.S. was never feudalist properly. A relatively recent creation. It more or less emerged into the world during capitalism and became the new standard bearer for Republican capitalist government, rebelling against the monarchy, etc. We know that that's a messy, not a clean process. But basically, the U.S. was never exactly feudalist, although it started out as a colonial project and was a colonial project for quite a while before it became the United States. Are there vestiges of the old order and that are comparable to the kinds of old remnant elements that Nazi Germany appealed to in terms of their feudal nostalgia? What was fucking Trump's slogan? Make America Great Again. The entire thing was nostalgia for some other time when whites had more rights, on and on. All this imagined persecution and victimhood. I don't know how you can possibly say that there is not, if not explicitly a feudal nostalgia, not a reactionary nostalgia for slavery, and if not outright slavery, at least for segregation, for a time when, quote, the coloreds knew their place, and all other kinds of heinous shit that MAGA people say. Of course there's reactionary nostalgia. Of course there is. How can you possibly say that? MAGA. Make America Great Again. That's what it means. It is reactionary nostalgia. Plain and simple. Trump won a fucking election based off of it. It helps that he was up against Hillary Clinton, who is a uniquely unpopular figure, both with the left and with the sort of Rush Limbaugh right. So there's that. As far as the mention of sexual orientation, nice dodge there. I know Caleb has gotten into trouble in the past, rightfully so, for having on people who say that, transgender people are part of some imperialist conspiracy or whatever. That's bullshit. We need to protect the rights of LGBTQ plus people, full stop, period. Okay? And I think it's worth noting that he said sexual orientation, there will be, quote, some odd confusion, unquote. Is that, are you saying that they are going to be promoting sexual confusion? Are you equating being LGBTQ with being confused? What are you saying? Okay, let's get back to the video.
So we have 5 years to prepare. We have 5 years to build the city building tendency. We have 5 years to promote scientific socialism. We have 5 years to build communities of solidarity and brotherhood. We have 5 years to build a political movement that gives people who've been cast aside by this system a home to belong to. We have 5 years to get people to be optimistic, constructive socialists. We have 5 years to prepare for what will be one of the darkest battles. We've got 5 years, is my prediction. We may not have that long. We have 5 years to build institutions. To build institutions that can withstand the onslaught of the liberal menace and possibly the danger, the all-out danger of a new world war. We have 5 years. That is my prediction. And I make this prediction with authority, as I spent the first hour of this stream telling you. That's what I'm here to tell you. I'm here to give you the warning. Our work is cut out for us. And if in 5 years we have built an effective, illiberal, socialist, constructive organization, if in 5 years there are millions of people who have become part of the city-building tendency and have awakened and have done it, if that is the case, we will be able to push back. And it may be a situation like World War II, where the communists were able to defeat the menace of fascism and win the respect and glory of the human race. But if we're not ready, we could begin to see some very, very dark reality. I believe we have potential. The actions that we take, the work that we do, has a huge impact. The liberal menace is on the march. We've got time now to breathe, to organize. But the liberal menace is on the march.
All right. I'm going to start wrapping up my comments. I don't know. There's kind of a lot of this video left. There's at least 20 minutes left. I don't know if any of it is new content or whatever. Again, in semi-conclusion here, I agree with the basic concept that the U.S. definitely has been getting worse over the last 40 years and is becoming more and more defensive of its increasingly unstable system. They're getting more brazen and more desperate in defense of that. Completely agree. However, I do not accept Caleb Maupin's analysis of what exactly is going on, what kind of form that will take, and some of the things that he's saying we should be embracing. I don't accept that. And so while, I use the hashtag Revolution 2030, I think that if we really push, we can get something going by then, maybe sooner, whatever. The 5 years, okay, fine. 5 years, we got it. That's your thing. And you've said it with authority. Well, I'm saying with authority, I don't know. And I'm saying you don't know either. Exactly. Nobody knows. I think that one of the things we do see the United States is desperately trying to do is to attack China. China's economy is on the rise. The U.S.'s is getting left in the dust. The U.S. is economically, there's no way it can compete with China. Yes, it's funding a lot of China's growth, but there will be a point where China can fund itself and will tell the U.S. to fuck off. And then the U.S. will be very angry because it will say, no, we made you, we own you. And the U.S., you can already see, is doing everything that it can to drive a wedge between the rest of the world and China. They particularly, I think, want to drive wedges between any kind of solidarity movement. They don't want anyone even critically supporting China. So I think that that is a thing. How much worse can the U.S. get other than what it has already been doing in the last 20 years? Short of using nuclear weapons, short of an all-out assault, in a major way, like an air war against China or something, which I think is unlikely, but possible. China has a much larger population than the U.S. I don't know that that would go that well for the U.S., but we're getting really speculative at this point. Yes, we need to keep building the left. I'm not sure that what Caleb Maupin is doing is entirely that. I think he embraces a lot of things that, although they claim some opposition to imperialism, or the specific system of the U.S. anyway, I'm not sure that they are things that socialists necessarily want to embrace. So there it is. He can call me synthetic left all he wants. The people in his cult can throw whatever invented terms they have at me. I mean, when I grabbed this video, I was looking at the recent uploads, and we've got some Canadian communist guy singing "O Canada." Great, you're singing an imperialist anthem. Tremendous. It just, the whole thing, the wearing the suits, everything, it's like some giant version of Get Clean for Gene. I think it's so weird, to be honest, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that this entire effort by Caleb Maupin and his cult to paint everyone who is not in lockstep with them as some kind of anarchist wrecker or some destroyer of civilization is just, silly. It's tragic. It's sad. It's gross. It's just a bizarre thing. Please don't buy into that. So I'm going to scan through the rest of the video, see if there are any other tidbits or if it's just repetition. All right, and I've scanned ahead. That is the end of that section. He goes into something else after this. So I'm going to call it here. Thanks for listening. Thanks to the current patrons whose names are on the screen. If you'd like to support Socialism for All, I do not run ads on this channel, so any material support is coming directly from audience members. You can go to patreon.com/socialismforall, and everything that you do there is appreciated and encouraging. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting also boost the channel in the YouTube algorithm. But I don't get into debates with people in the comments. If you have a genuine question, happy to see what we can do. I'm here to learn, as are you, hopefully. If you're here to bash and just give me a hard time, well, I don't have time for that, as I explained earlier in the video. So, thanks for all that you do, and we will catch you in the next video.